All right, and welcome everybody to episode number 9 of the Redefining Retirement podcast. I'm Corey, and today I am with Dr. Eboni Truss. It's just crazy that I have a doctor that I'm talking to. Who would have thought little old me would be talking to a doctor, but here we are. And she's going to talk all about midlife transition, reinvention, and all that stuff. She's been through it. She's been there. She's done that. And I'm gonna let her introduce herself to you right now, and then we're gonna dig in. So
All right. So thank you, Corey. Yes, there is a doctor in the house. Absolutely. So my name is Dr. Eboni L. Truss. And yes, please say the L because it is sexy. And I get to help high achievers who have built beautiful, successful lives, but they feel like strangers inside of them. They feel
mm,
empty and dissatisfied, right? I help them find their way back to the truth of who they actually were born to be. And so, as a matter of fact, for that person, I have a guide called When Success Isn't Enough. And my mission, message, mantle is called Unbecoming, as you can see, because contrary to popular opinion, it's actually not about doing more. And as a Gen Xer, it's like that's no, like, we're supposed to be doing a whole lot more every day, all the time. However, it's not about doing more. It's about releasing what, was never ours to carry so that we can finally live from the place of clarity, of purpose, and peace that we were created for. And so, in a nutshell, that's what I get to do every day, and I absolutely love it.
and that is what everybody, or at least that's what I'm trying to reach and preach. There you go. I'm rhyming right away.
Yeah. I love it.
Um, so yep, maybe I got a new tagline. We'll see.
There you
So
go.
yeah, so we'll I'll look into that after we talk. But before we get into it, because I've got a series of we've got 3 questions we kind of talk about on every podcast, or at least when Mike's not on the podcast anyway, I should say. And that is, we're going to start with where somebody started, right? Like we want that first period of life where we don't know what we're doing. We're kind of like we're in high school. Who knows what we're going to do when we grow up? And then you're in your 20s, just kind of stumbling around, figuring out what it is. Then we get into we'll call it the second period. I don't want to go by like dates. You get that second period where you've been working in your career, and then all of a sudden, like myself, you're like, I don't think I'm quite there yet. There's something missing, or I don't think I'm doing the right thing, etc. And then there's like this big transformation. And that's kind of how we're going to structure this particular podcast. And if you've listened to my past episodes, it's kind of the same way we did it with Mark and Elizabeth and all that. And before we get into it, I just want to remind everybody, hit the subscribe button, comment, please comment. We want to hear from you. This isn't a one-way street. We want some, or at least I want to. Maybe that's selfish. I don't know, but I want dialogue with everybody. I want to know that we're on the right path and that we're talking about what you guys want to talk about. So, with all that said, Ebony, tell us tell us about your first phase of life in
First
your
phase,
career.
right,
Let's do
okay,
that.
cool beans. Okay, perfect. So, first phase. So, growing up, I actually, uh, probably around about 9, 10 years old, knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to law school. And I also knew that I didn't wanna be, like, in the courtroom, like, trials and that kinda thing. So, I can remember getting my grandmother's Yellow Pages. Okay,
Mm.
yes. Remember those?
Yep. Yep.
Color Yellow Pages, right? And going through to the attorney section and just looking at all the different kinds of law that there were to practice. And, I settled on corporate law. I wanted to, jet set, do the acquisitions and mergers and, just, like, be real sexy with it all over the place, right? And so, from that point, everything that I did as far as academically was in that direction. My mom put me in like after school programs and stuff. I'm from Detroit. And so there was a program called DAPSEP that would allow you to almost like apprentice with various careers. And so I was a part of, you know, these almost like masterminds as a high schooler with like lawyers and all the things. Fast forward, I get to college. I major in sociology, and my junior year, I have, you know, my applications ready, and I just had this sense like, no, it's not law school. It's like, what? You know, like I couldn't fill out like just no, it's off the table. And now, mind you, I came to Alabama from Detroit to go to college. And so it's like, okay, what is my next step supposed to be? So I wound up staying here in Alabama. And with my undergraduate degree, I was able to get a job as a social worker. So I was working with uh, the Department of Human Resources doing child abuse and neglect investigation. So you can imagine what
Yeah.
kind of life that was, right? And so like this actually goes into phase two because it was when I was interviewing a child one afternoon. I came out at their school. I came out, I walked into the hallway and I had what I call an epiphany moment, right? Where I'm looking around, I'm smelling the school lunch, I'm listening to the kids, and I'm just like watching. And I was like, you know what? I could be a teacher.
Mm.
And I had no idea how to do that. So what I did, Corey, I went down to the county
Yeah.
board of education. I walked in and the receptionist greeted me. And I said, hi, I want to be a teacher. What do I do to be a teacher? And she was like, what? I said, I want to be a teacher. What do I need to do? I didn't know where else to go. So she called the superintendent, and I literally got a meeting with the county superintendent, sat down with her, and she listed for me what I needed to do. And I'm like, okay. And so I wound up going online, and this was in 2003, before online degrees were, you know, popular or sexy or even seen as credible.
Yeah.
Go to the University of Phoenix. I get my master's degree in elementary education, and I start teaching. Had no idea what that was going to look like. I started off actually at my 'cause, by that time, I had had my older son, and so I taught pre-K at his daycare, and then I had to do my student teaching, and so I went to a local elementary school. It was that August. I did my student teaching in 4th grade, and I'm, like, wondering, "Okay, what's gonna happen after because, student teaching is free, and I'm gonna need a job, right? I need
Yeah.
a job. So what happened was one of the 1st grade teachers actually quit, and she left at, like, right at the beginning of the school year, and I had favor with the principal, so I was just ushered right into her 1st grade classroom, and 15 years later, there it is. So
That
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, the one thing I kinda wanna point out about that part of your story is how you just walked in and you just started asking questions. "What do I need to do? What's my next steps?" And it's like, I did that too, and I had a lot of friends, you know, comment on that over the years. They're like, "What, you're just gonna do that?" Or you know, like, I had no experience doing anything. I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, I think my music part of me was kinda like that. They're like, I'd never booked a show before. I'd never recorded an album. I've never done anything. And it just like, I just went to the people that I thought would know and I just started asking. And I think that's super important for everybody. It's even the same way with my Google Ads stuff and all the marketing and all the second career stuff I did. You just have to find someone that knows more than you do and go right to the source, you know, because sometimes you get bogged down and looking for information and all that stuff, but you just got to have the courage to just go do that. I mean, that's a huge thing for anybody out there. And
Mhm.
I don't, I just think when we're younger, maybe it's our generational thing. Maybe it's just a me thing, but it's just like, you know, you always felt like you had to do all this research and go to the library and do this. And only other people can do that when really, if you just start talking to people, you're going to get there pretty quickly. So anyway, that I just
No,
wanted to
no, I
point out
love
there.
that
Y-
because you're absolutely right. And I love how you said having the courage,
Yeah.
right? Because I feel like once we hit a certain space, a certain stride, or segment of time, maybe we're married and have children, like people who are looking at us and depending on us, or willingness to have courage and take risks, like exponentially decreases. I
Yeah.
feel like, because
Yep.
it's like people are waiting on me or they're looking at me, right? And so I can't fail. But at the same time, I really feel like us, our generation, like Gen Xers, like I, I'll speak for me. I grew up feeling like I was supposed to already know a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and so it made me want to know like how to go and do. And I remember my mom um telling me to go research something. I forgot what it was. And I literally got on the city bus, went because there was no internet, of course, went down to the public library, downtown Detroit, and spent hours researching on my own, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's in all of us. But again, as we get older and we got more people looking at us and or depending on us, our willingness to take the risk lowers. So it's not that it's not in us, it absolutely is. It's just finding the courage, like you said, to tap into it. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's and really that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast and talking to people like you, because it's like I just want people to understand, and there's a huge component of belief that people need to kind of like instill in themselves, right? And so I figure the more I can, more people like you that I can throw at them and just say, look at how many examples there are of people doing this, like,
Yeah, throw me.
and
Yes.
that's the key. And that's the key. I want to just bludgeon you with belief. There you go. And look
Yes.
at this. I'm
Oh,
just
that's
tagline
good.
machine today.
Good, Corey.
So,
And I'm a fan of alliteration as well. But still,
yep.
bludgeoning with belief is like, I love it. Like, let's do it. Absolutely.
So that's the segue right there. So 15 years teaching, and then one day you're like, man, now I got to do this all over again. I got to reinvent myself. I mean, I don't. That's
Well, so going back to courage, right? So I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, right? I was 6 years old, had a lemonade stand. 7, I sold Kool-Aid ices. I've been a part of more MLM network marketing
well,
stuff that I even want to talk about.
me too. That's probably a whole episode right there, just going through. I'm because I've got at least 4, maybe 5. I think I was a part of. So I've
Man,
been there. I've been on
I
there on that.
probably I could probably triple that number
Whoa.
because
Okay.
a couple of them I went back into. I got out and then went back, a couple of times of that. But so I've always been entrepreneurial. And at the time that I was teaching, teaching is a very honorable, job. And, like you're bringing up the next generation. And yeah, that's all well and good. Yet, what I've come to understand and now be good with is that I'm also incredibly unemployable
Yeah.
because of
Me too. No.
I mean, I just I feel like a caged bird
Yeah.
inside of anybody else's schedule or time frame or whatever. And so it wasn't long into my teaching career that I launched into officially because I had been mentoring, like coaching women, speaking for free for several years. It was like, okay, I can make this a business. And that's what I did. And so I would take my sick leave and I would go, I would go speak at conferences or whatever. And I tell my principal, listen, I'm not sick. I'm just letting you know up front, my integrity says, let me
Yeah.
tell you, I'm going to this city or this state to do a workshop or to speak at a conference or whatever. And he was cool. And so, okay. And so At the same time, though, there was this thing of the safety of that monthly paycheck, the safety of having basic things like medical insurance. Because by now I got 2 children.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, there again, that courage when you got people depending on you, right? My husband has always been like the president of my fan club. So he's like, go for it, go for it. And I'm like, I don't know. And so by the time my income from the business side of things surpassed my teaching income, I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna do it. So that fall, I went to my principal and I really had the sense and the wisdom that I needed to leave that May before the next school year started, but I didn't. Because again, I'm like, I am very much a risk taker. At the same time, I was like, that's a huge, because what if something happens? That was
Yeah.
always me. What if something happens? You know? And so I went to my principal that fall. I said, listen, this is gonna be my last year. My last year. Now I wasn't supposed to be back, but still. And that was the most hellish school year of all the others. It was just like, because it was like, no, like the grace for this has passed. You shouldn't be here. At the same time, that was August. At the beginning of August. At the end of August, my husband wound up being in an accident on his job. Fast forward, he becomes an amputee. And so now I'm trying to divide my time between trying to be in my classroom and take care of my husband as he's getting over the hump of things, trying to get used to not having his dominant hand and that kind of thing. Right
And
now,
and you still have that desire. So you've got these two things going on,
mhm,
but now but still it's like that desire to get out and to do your own thing is still there,
yes,
right? So
it's
and
still
that's
there.
what even ramps up all of it. Okay,
Yep,
I know
yes,
exactly where you're at.
yes.
I can
And Corey too, there was so much regret because I kept saying if I would have just left in May, I wouldn't have this going, like, all this back and forth going on. I wouldn't have this extra layer
yeah.
of emotional stuff and all the things. Why didn't you just do it?
And there's
I
guilt
was
too because
Yes,
you're sitting there, you're teaching, and you're just like, you know, there's a big chunk of you that doesn't want to be there. So
yes.
then you're guilty because, oh my God, I'm a horrible person. I don't want to. I'm not
Mhm.
giving enough to these kids because I know it's so crazy because these are the exact same, in a completely different field. I was a mechanical draftsman, but I had the same types of emotions, right? Like, oh my God, I'm not being a good worker. I'm not being a good employee, but yet I don't want to be here and da da da. And it's just like it's the same thing, family stuff, and I totally understand it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to stop you though. You're on a roll, so I'm gonna.
Listen, that was our agreement, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, yes, and so like all of these emotions, all the things going on, and then I'm angry with myself. And then I had my coworkers saying, how wonderful and all the things. And I made up in my mind when I had after my FMLA completely ran out and I had to go back. I said, this is the last year. This is it. I am not going to allow other people's expectations, other people's opinions, other people's whatever to define what I get to do or to circumvent what I was born to do.
Mm,
And
yeah.
that's the thing, right? Oftentimes it's the opinions of others. It's that expected identity, right? How people already see us and our thought process about that. Because again, teaching very honorable. Folks generally get, well, not so much anymore, but at that time, people get into teaching and they stay until retirement
Yeah.
because it's so safe and it's all the things. And you know, oftentimes we have jobs that are like that. Yet that those same jobs are sucking the literal life out of us because we are aware that there is something else. There is more that is calling to us, but the safety is lying to us, saying that no, it's better over here, right? And then what are my parents gonna say? What are the people at work gonna say? What is my spouse gonna say? Or what are they gonna think? All the people. I've come to the conclusion that if any if I'm concerned about the opinions of people who love me, at the end of the day, what they want from me is my happiness and my contentment. They want my fulfillment. So coming from that vantage point, I'm like, all right, I'm out. Because anybody else who's saying no, stay, no, whatever, it's from a selfish place. And so if they get to be selfish, so do I. And that's it. So I took the leap and I jumped. I took the leap and jumped. Yeah. I said that right. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah,
So
no, I think it works. Totally makes
yes,
sense. I got it. So
yes. Yes, yes. And it was in fact scary
yeah,
because there again, I'm trying to figure out and navigate a few different things, and yet here I stand having done it. It always seems so super scary previous, right? Before you actually take the leap, it always seems so super scary. You have like this laundry list of things that could and probably will go wrong. You know,
yeah,
you know,
no, yeah, absolutely.
yes,
It's
yes.
never how you draw it up for sure.
No, never, never is. And yet the adventure of it, right? If I had it to do all over again, I would have left sooner because I am a teacher at heart, and yet I understand that my teaching gift has application outside of an elementary school classroom, right? And so it's being aware of that and having not only the kahunas, but also the support to go ahead and say, okay, here it is. Even if it's just a step by step, like, okay, here's how it could go. And because I'm a step by step person.
Yeah,
So I would write out my list and then write out my steps and just go. Absolutely.
it's and there's a couple things out of that scenario. So first of all, I'm thinking as you're talking about, I was a teacher to children, but you could still use your teaching outside of that. And I would
Absolutely.
almost say that like, to maybe a detractor that was, somebody that was telling you, "Oh my God, you sure you want to do that?" Because I've had that too. You're just gonna do your own thing, putting ads on the internet. Like I heard that one so many times. I'm like, yep, that's what I'm gonna do. And it's like, okay, weirdo, like whatever. But but this is like 2012, 13 in that area, right? So it was a little kind of early for some people as far as internet
Uh-huh.
and working from home and all this other stuff. But like what ended up happening, and we're gonna get to this soon too, is like you're teaching and now you're teaching like executives, you're teaching people with more experience, executives, right? So in a way you're kind of like your teaching is going further in a way, right? Because you're teaching the influencers, right? And I think of like a Seth Godin. You know who Seth Godin is at all?
Yes,
You know who that
absolutely. Mhm.
like is he the one that was talking about like sneezers, right? Like you get in front of the sneezers, right? So you're teaching the sneezers because these are people that have influence over how many other people, right? They're an executive. They have families. They have people that they manage. All this stuff. So it's like if you can teach them and affect them, that would seem to me to have even more reach than even just the children, right? Obviously, the children are a big deal. I'm not.
Mhm. Yeah, 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 I get it, I get it, yes.
So I feel like in a way that definitely was a step forward. And then the other thing that I think about too, or I'm curious about, is now that you've kind of crossed the chasm, for lack of a better way to put that, do you think it was more risky just staying as a teacher, or is it more risky now being a versatile entrepreneur, right? Like you know what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
which is more risky? Being a teacher and just call, until you're 65 and you can retire, right? Like, or whatever, you get a pension. I don't know how it works with teachers, or just
Uh-huh.
being an entrepreneur. Which one's more risky, after you went
That's
through?
that's such a great question. I love that question, Corey. I would say both of them are risky, actually. It's just like choose your poison, like choose your risk, right? Because had I stayed in the classroom, I risk not being fulfilled. I risked a life of emptiness. I risked looking back over my life. I'm sitting around with my soon, I won't say soon, no.
Uh,
Looking at my
yeah,
would-be grandchildren who are coming at some point and describing my life, knowing on the inside this, like, however many years I should have and I didn't. How much regret, how I wouldn't even wanna have those conversations with them, right? I would feel like such a fraud,
yeah,
like a complete fraud. And so that's risk. Do I wanna risk living a life where I feel like a fraud, where I feel empty, where I am dissatisfied? Or on this side, you have the risk of living full out. How is that gonna make people feel? Folks who are watching you, right? Because for some people, that winds up being almost like an indictment. How dare she jump out here and, do stuff on her own? Because on the inside, they that's what they want. That's what they want, the kahunas to take the risk. And so there's a level of jealousy that happens as well. Do I want to risk relationships? People who are like, and that literally happened to me. I had family members who were like, "Oh, you don't come around anymore. You don't what?" While I was chasing my dream, I'm teaching full time, I'm running a business full time, and they're upset that I'm not coming over to sit on the couch and chill. No, do I risk all the things that probably will go wrong? Am I willing to fail forward? Right? And for me, that risk was the biggest one because we had taken a risk previously. I actually started a school. In those 15 years, I started a brick and mortar school and we got scammed basically. And I live in small town Alabama. So stuff travels like, my gosh, right? And so everybody was looking at Mrs. Truss, who was this great teacher in public school. She jumped out here, started her own school, fell flat on her face,
yeah.
like all the things. And so I here I go again, was my thought process. Here I go again, about to jump out here. Oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? Do I risk it? Do I take that risk? Right? Now, for me, between those two, taking the risk that I took and the risks I take every single day, far better. Cause I got stories. Oh my gosh. And I can like really say that I'm very proud of myself. Very proud of what we've been able to accomplish and do. And I'm not even halfway done, right? And I feel every day the beauty of life. I live when I take my younger son to school every day, I have to pass by where I used to work,
Hmm.
the school.
Yep.
And I look at it and I just smile. The relief and the release that is there is amazing, right? I have dodged bullets because teaching is stressful. Most jobs are stressful, right? So dodge health bullets. Like, should I have taken the risk? Absolutely. Can any one of us take that risk? Absolutely. We can. We can. And for some of us, it may not be entrepreneurship, and there is something. If you feel that dissatisfaction, if you feel that emptiness while everybody else is saying you should be happy. If I had your life, I would da da da. Because you have this car, you make this salary, you should be happy. That's your opinion. You're entitled to it. That's it. However, I feel more calling and I want to chase it. Absolutely.
And do you feel like it makes you more just resilient from like the standpoint of like when you were just in one career path,
Hmm.
so you're just going down that road, and that's, again, I'm not saying anything negative about anybody else that's doing that and they're cool doing that and that's great. But now that you're like an entrepreneur, you've had to, because you have a book, you have all these other facets to your career than maybe just one thing, and it's just like, so now, do you feel like that makes you way more resilient? You know what I mean? Like and I don't know if I'm articulating that that
I
question good
get it.
enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just,
Yes.
you're more versatile, right? And the fact that you've gone through the ups and the downs, right? Like you get like this, for lack of a better word, callus on your soul, right? Like, cause like, oh, here we go again, but I know what this is like. And then it's just, the callus gets thicker and thicker and thicker, right?
You better talk to me, Corey. Yes,
This is the soul callus. There we go. I'm
absolutely.
gonna have to go through all these, make a glossary for this episode here.
'Cause that's good stuff. Yes, it is. Yes. Yes. You develop such, or I'll say I have developed such a thick skin, or a thicker skin, I'll say, because I don't care what people think about whatever. And that's at the core of unbecoming, right? Because we're told almost from the time that we can understand language that we are supposed to that we are not enough is what we're told. That is the message that we're given almost from the beginning. You are not enough. How does that come across? You should be like your older brother, your older sister. Look at your cousin over here. You go to school, teacher says everybody should be like little Annie or little Johnny. They're making A's. You watch television, the perfume or the cologne commercial is telling you that you're not sexy enough. You don't have it all together. The exercise infomercial is saying you need this piece of equipment, otherwise, you are going to be fat and ugly the rest of your life. Everywhere we go, you look at the car commercials. This car, if you don't have it, you are not going to be the it girl, the it boy. So now we're trying to keep up with everybody else except us. We have completely forgotten what we knew coming here. Being born, we knew, right? We've completely forgotten what we were born to say and do, and instead adopt other people's opinions, other people's fear. How many of us have been or are afraid to do a thing that our heart is screaming because somebody else said, when I tried it, it didn't work?
Yeah.
Or when my cousin, or I know a guy, I know a girl, when they did it, so and their intention most often is pure. They don't want you to get hurt or whatever, and yet we take that on as a mask. We put that mask on and say, okay, well, I can't because so and so. I shouldn't because this and that. So now we got all these masks and we don't know how to just be. We don't know how to just be, because just being, it's like, okay, first of all, I don't even know who I am for real. And if I take the journey of finding out, how is that going to impact other people? So it wraps right back around to I'm not enough. And that's a lie. To be clear, that's a lie, because we are enough. It's the masks that weigh us down, that cover us up, that lie to us and say we're not enough, when really you absolutely are. It is just getting back to the place of being. It is unbecoming all the things, all the mess, all the weights, all the masks, and getting back to the place of being and living authentically, living whole, living excited about life, living full, living happy and with joy. I could talk about that all day. Stop me, Corey.
I don't know if I can. I mean, it's like, if there's a tsunami coming at you, it's a little hard to block it off. You just got to kind of wait for it to come in and,
No,
plug your
I know.
nose and just, no, you're totally fine. I keep thinking about what you were saying before about like the relationships and the expectations from others, because that was a big one with me too. And that may have been probably, if you're going to have a top three toughest things to, you know, overcome when you're going from this old state of being like, oh, I'm going to work till I'm 65 and that's the way it's got to be, to, starting to think like, well, what if, why, like start asking questions. And it is the friends and the relationship situation. Cause that was a big one. I had some very close friends that were just like, I was the guy in the bowling team for how many years. Every Friday night, that's what we do. All my buddies and we go bowling, and then and then the summertime we're playing softball a couple times a week, and it's like that's what you do, right? I mean, that's what we did in my 20s and my 30s, and then all of a sudden it was like, I'm not going to be able to do bowling anymore because a lot of reasons. It just doesn't align with what I'm doing at this time, and I don't want to be hungover, and I want to do other stuff. And then,
Mhm.
same thing with the softball and all that stuff. And it's like there is a huge some kind of a regret in that I wasn't able to follow through with that, but at the same time, I never would have got to where I was without it, right? So that was a tough one, right? Because you have like longtime personal friends, and it's just some of them are fine and we're good, and they were like actually coming to me at some point and going, oh wow, like, hey, tell me how you did that, can I do that, so like it actually did work with some people. Some people it's just they're still doing the same thing that they always were, which is great, that's good for them. That would be one of the that is definitely a challenge. But and one thing I would say too is like I always come up with this quote, I always tell this to my kids, or if I like try to instill it in them, it's like, you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
and I so believe that, because if everybody's going to sit around, and this comes from a guy that used to hang out with, let's just say, he used to hang out with some of the seedier. I don't want to. I'm like always trying to think, is somebody listening to this? What are they going to think? Are they think I'm talking about them? But it's like if you hang out with a bunch of people that sit around and smoke weed all day, it's like, well, that's you're gonna be one of the top five weed smokers. You know what I'm saying? And whatever else. But if you hang around with like even the MLM stuff, as much as I give it a little crap, at least I was hanging out with people that were trying to better themselves, and at least I was trying to, I was learning stuff. I did learn skills. It wasn't all for nothing, right? And it just taught me I can't sell stuff that I don't 100% believe in. So that's the other thing I learned from the MLM. But that definitely, those are real. And anybody listening to this, no reason to sugarcoat it. It's like that's just the decision you're going to have to make. How bad do you want it is what it kind of comes down to, right? And so that's what I was thinking about when you were talking about that. So I've definitely been through that. And so now fast forward to today, you found it, you made it through the chasm. Like
Yes.
you got over it somehow. And tell us what you're doing now, and who you're helping. Do you have any stories? Do you have, like, just whatever comes to your mind. Let us know how it's going for you.
Ooh, you ask such great questions, Corey. Oh my gosh. Okay. Um, okay, so what am I doing now? So again, my mission, message, mantle is unbecoming. And what that looks like, just in a nutshell, as best as I can nutshell it, is it is uncovering the you,
Hmm.
right? How my vernacular is who you be, because who you be, your being, right, is like yesterday, today, and tomorrow. It does not change. Jobs will change, friends will change, families will change in whatever different kinds of ways. And yet who you be will not change. So it is uncovering the lies that you've been told, we've been told, I've been told about life, about who we are, and that kind of thing. And then unlocking the truth so that the real you, who you be, can be unveiled. That, in a nutshell, is what I get to do. And so I do that primarily with, again, high achievers, like you said, executives, CEOs, professionals, founders, business owners. Work with them in order to help them to identify the masks they've been wearing. Because the reason why, despite all the trappings of success, we still feel like ho hum about it, and we still receive the guilt that we get from other people. You know, again, you ought to be happy because you got da da da. And then also, myself included, those who I get to work with, like high achievers, are very performance driven, very performative, very achievement driven. I think Gen X, just across the board, very performance driven, very achievement driven, always trying to get the A, regardless. So we'll stay up half the night. We'll put our health at risk. Like, we'll do the thing, we'll fight, we'll go for it, right? All at the expense of ourselves. And that's my story, all at the expense of myself. And so, how I help those who I get the privilege of working with is ha- helping them to identify the mask and then begin to remove them. And I love watching how the weights lift and just start, all the burden just kind of just start falling off, right? Again, for everybody, it's not entrepreneurship. And for those it just is. For some, it's a new position. For some, it is bringing their whole self to their work or to their business, as opposed to separating them, right? Especially business owners, because oftentimes, and I have somebody coming to mind right now, oftentimes we think that as entrepreneurs, our business is separate from who we be. And that's not true. And when we separate it, we wind up losing the purpose of the business. So now we're out here, every shiny object, every marketing strategy, every business book. I'm going to every conference. I got to network with everybody. And there's this blanket kind of hoping that it works, right? Or doing things that actually do work. But yet now I don't want to come to work. I don't want to go to my work as a business owner because I've lost the purpose of the business. And that happens because I've disconnected my personal purpose from the purpose of the business. What I help business owners to understand and realize is that you have that business because you were supposed to have that business. So you and that business are intricately connected. There is no separation, or there shouldn't be. And the reason why you feel the way you do, unfulfilled, um, confused, is because you tried to tear yourself from your purpose, from the business's purpose, or never even sat down with it. So that's ultimately, it boils down to the masks. What are the masks that you're wearing in corporate? The masks that you're wearing at the networking event? The masks that you're wearing when you're talking to your team? What are those masks? Because those are the things that are now the barrier between you and real joy, between you and satisfaction. That they are the barrier. And so I help you get rid of them.
Is it possible to overthink purpose? And what I mean about this, and what I mean is, there was a time when I first had one of my first businesses. I didn't think of it as a business back then, but it was. I had a fantasy football blog and podcast and all this stuff way back in the ancient days, 2007 ish. And one of the reasons, what's that?
They're very ancient.
Yeah, in internet years, that's like a long time ago. That's
40
like
years. Yeah.
rocks and stones. But but one of the things I remember, one of the reasons I moved on from fantasy football was it didn't feel like there was just something missing about it. It's like, oh, here I am, we're talking about, fantasy, like this isn't, I'm not a real football player out there living the life or whatever, we're like, it's almost like you're living on someone else's dream. And then there's been all these other scenarios along the way too, where I always thought there was going to be this ultimate purpose, right?
Mhm.
And I would say now in the last year or so, it's like, okay, was I putting too much into that? Like, what if I would have just stayed with the fantasy football thing? Because I feel like I could have been successful doing that and just having fun, right? And it's like, if I'm sitting there saying that, like, fantasy football, again, I'm not ripping on anybody because I still play. I was stressed out about it yesterday a little bit. But it's like, did I put too much emphasis on what that purpose is? Because there's so many different occupations. Not everybody has this deep, like, I am an emergency room doctor and I am saving lives every 5 minutes of the day. Not everybody is Gandhi. Not everybody is in a job where they are, you know what I'm saying? Like, you feel like there's this purpose, like, and you're reaching for this goal. And it's like, I start to wonder at some time, am I just putting too much into this? Am I disregarding really good opportunities along the way because I don't think it has the right kind of purpose? Or do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of a weird way to say it. And I feel like I'm always kind of like playing with it all the time, right? Like, I might be in a flow state, like everything's going good, but then I'm like, is this not the purpose I was looking for? Or, what is it that how would you define purpose, right?
Uh-huh.
Any occupation,
Okay,
perhaps.
okay. So that's so good. I love it here. Okay, so so I love your questions, Corey. So when we think about purpose, I feel like sometimes and like possibly what you're describing is um our personal purpose versus opportunity, right? Or in connection with opportunity. So I believe that we each have a personal purpose, a reason for being, right? However, the way that that purpose shows up in any given space is based on the opportunity that has presented itself, right? So, for example, who I be, my purpose is a teacher, right? I teach, that's just what I do, right? When I am teaching or when I have the opportunity to teach business owners, it looks different than when I'm teaching, CEOs or team leaders and that kind of thing. It looks different. Oftentimes, I don't even teach the exact same thing, but the opportunity has opened up. And so I'm going to show up with my whole self, right, in each space. It doesn't mean that um I am going to try to find some deep kind of whatever, inside of the space. I'm just going to be committed to showing up as my whole self. And when I do that, opportunity presents itself. And I think that when we come at it from that, because I have a lot of fun. Fun is one of my core values, if you couldn't tell. Yeah. So
Yep.
I have a lot of fun, but conventional wisdom would say, well, when you are going to talk to CEOs and execs, like you got to have this certain no, I'm still going to show up me and that's it. And the opportunities present themselves. So it's not that we have to feel bogged down by what like we were born to do. We just have to find the spaces where we get to do it, right? Where we get to show up with our whole selves. And for you, if that's fantasy football, then so be it. That's just it. Just, one conversation or one question to have is, how does my purpose show up in this space? Because I'm here. So apparently I'm supposed to be showing up. How does that look in this space? Because again, how it looks with entrepreneurs oftentimes looks very different than how it looks for me with CEOs, professionals, team leaders, and that kind of thing. Even different industries, it looks different. And yet, for me, it's still going to be me. And because I'm in control of me, it doesn't matter. I can shape shift, whatever, because we still gonna have fun. All my core values are still gonna show up. I don't know if that answers your question. But when we think about putting too much into purpose, I, I feel like that's the wrong question. I feel like it is, what part of me and my purpose needs to show up in this opportunity, in this
Mhm.
space, at this time.
Okay. No, and just for the record, I'm not going into fantasy football again. I'm not gonna be doing that.
In
Just
case anybody
just
wants
for
to
the
know.
record. But that's where it was born, born out of, right? And it's like it followed me through, doing music, and it followed me into other areas. And it's like, so there was a lot of times along the way, it's like, well, this purpose or this follow your passion stuff started to kind of get very entangled and messy. Especially the follow your passion. That's a tough one because you've probably heard, like, follow your passion and you're going to go broke. Maybe, if like you just, because no matter how much I like playing music and how much I like writing music, at the end of the day, I'm only still getting 0.003 cents for every, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it just, that's a whole other thing. But no, it's just really interesting to hear that. So it's definitely something that we think about a lot. And I just want to, I'm like, oh, it's kind of interesting. Like, what is, the thing that is going to carry us through that? And I feel like I just lost a train of thought that I had going before
Well, let
we
me say this, and this might trigger it, because I don't use purpose and passion interchangeably. I think they're two totally different things. I think that I would describe passion as opportunity. It is a form of opportunity. So again, if you were doing fantasy football again, right? Or even thinking about it from this vantage point, what what parts of you lit up when you were doing the fantasy
Mm,
football thing that you rediscovered and took with you into the next thing, right? That's the difference, I would say,
okay.
between your purpose and a passion. A passion presents itself, oh, and that opportunity, that passion allows you to see uh a portion of your purpose. It opens it up. It opens you up more, right? So nothing is ever wasted at all. So whatever parts got lit up and you're like, oh, I got this, and you take this with you into the next thing. And then the next thing, oh, I got these. Okay. And you take them with you.
Here's another scenario too. Um,
Hmm.
so we kind of grew up um our whole life saying, like, basically, if you don't go to college, you pretty much you're done, you're failed, right?
Yep.
And that's the kind of, and that was just mainly like the financial aid pushers, the college, the
Yes.
college pushers. I don't know what another way to put that, but like, but that's
That's
kind of
fine.
what they
I
were.
like
If you don't go to college, like every um career assessment we always took ended with college, right? I mean, there was no other right answer. So it kind of confused, purpose, right? Because, and I always wondered, like, I could never describe to anybody, like my son, for instance, like, he's doing trades. I know that it's like super smart to do trades. Like, that's what I've learned over the years. I don't think people presented it to us that way. Like, I know my father's generation, like that was cool because people, we had people that became plumbers, we had people that became all this stuff. And I feel like in our generation, it just got muddied like a lot because they were putting so much emphasis. So like I wonder, um, if you're talking to younger people and you're talking about purpose, again, people associate purpose with, with this deep rooted zen thing that you're angling towards, when what can purpose be if you're building houses, or what is your purpose if you are cleaning toilets, or what is your purpose if you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's so many different jobs across the spectrum. I mean, somebody that's just putting out TikTok videos of I don't know, they like model trains. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
but like, where is the purpose in each one of those different things? And like, how can people find that tether to tether themselves to? Do you know what I'm saying? I
got
mean,
you.
because that's kind of in a way what you're looking for, right? Like you want to tether yourself to a purpose. So I don't know if I'm going off the rails a little bit on that one, but do you kind of understand what I'm saying on that?
Going off the rails. You can't tell? Oh my goodness.
All
So
right.
that's fine. So here is what I know to be true from my own life and from all my Gen X friends, right? Growing like, I, I was gonna say growing up, but man, I'll be true for everybody. So oftentimes we get it backward. We try to do something and then find purpose, right? Or we try to do something in order to become something or someone, right? And we have it backward. That's backward because that is that's the worker. That's the achiever, that's the performer, right? I got to do these things so people will say I am, or I got to do these things so people or so I can say I am such and such. And that's backwards. It is the being first, right? So like when I'm having conversations like well with adults too, actually, now I'm thinking of it, but with like young adults, with kids, we start with dreaming, right? What's your dream for your life, right? And we start there and then we go backward from there. Well, why is that your dream? Why does that light you up? Why do you think about that? Like what's the thing? And we go all the way down to them. That's the tether. The human, the being is the tether. And when we stop trying to do all the things, right? So for example, um, for like elementary age children, there's this whole thing and it's perpetuated in every classroom. Got to make all A's, got to be a good student, gotta. So it's all this work, right? And so the child is then taught if I read all these books, if I study all this stuff, if I do all these things, then I'll be smart. Then I'll be an A student, right? I'll become a member of the National Honor Society or whatever the case may be. And by the way, we see that pattern in adults too. So there's that. Uh However, if we can get to the place and what I've done before is to help that child, that student, that young adult to dream for themselves, what winds up happening is that they begin to understand, no, I am good at stuff. I'm already good at stuff. And so because I'm already good, because I'm already smart, because this is already who I be, then yeah, I can get straight A's. Oh, I don't mind studying because we're going from the person out, right? And so because we tend to go from the stuff and try to bring it in, it is hard to find. It's very difficult to find the tether, to find the why, to understand all the things. But when we start with us, and we begin to dare to dream again for ourselves and about ourselves, just for ourselves, then we can start to see what I call the breadcrumbs and put it together and say, wait a minute, here is what, for adults, here is what I used to want to be. Why? Right? You said something earlier that was key, living other people's dream for us, right? The part of the reason why I made the decision to become an attorney when I was 9, 10 years old is because my mother gave me a couple of choices, doctor or lawyer. And you're going to college, you're going to college out of state, right? These were all handed to me. So, okay, these are my choices. I'll pick. Now, yes, I fell in love with the idea of corporate law, practicing corporate. I fell in love with that. But yet my heart was justice. My heart was travel
Hmm.
and enjoying various places. Guess what? I get to do that. Like I do, I do that. So it's still there. It's just how is it expressed? And the tether, if you will, is me. And so I can differentiate between opportunity and open doors and stuff based on me and what I know about who I was born to be.
You know, as you were talking about that, I was kind of thinking about kind of an analogy, like the way you described it in the beginning, like when you're talking about the children, everything they're doing is outcome based, right? Like you're looking for the pot at the end of the rainbow, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you keep chasing it. And it's like, even when you get to a certain level, you never really feel like you achieved that pot at the end of the rainbow. So, and it's kind of like, I'm going to compare this to weight loss because it's the best way I can think about this, or just, I'm sorry, health. I won't even say weight loss. Let's just say health.
Okay.
Because it's like, you think like, if I go on this diet, I'm gonna lose 30 pounds. Great. And then what happens? Nothing. That's it. Right. So in order to keep the weight off, in order to maintain a healthy lifestyle, it has to become a practice, not
Yeah.
a destination. It has to become a practice. And I'm
That's
thinking
it.
like, in that, and when you think about the way you describe that, that's kind of the way everything is, right? And so I'm all, even in your career, right? So I'm thinking of an analogy. Like I used to think about this all the time. And I've seen this happen in books and other, in success stories where maybe you're a kid and you're dreaming of being a great musician or something like that. Like you have in your mind, you want to be Michael Jackson. Well, that's not going to happen for 99.9999999% of everybody.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
And maybe you don't even want to be Michael Jackson when you think about it, because there was a lot of baggage that went along with that too.
Mm-hmm.
But if you use that as your North Star
Yes.
and not your destination, like if I become, if I fall short of being Michael Jackson, I lose. No, that's not what we're looking for, because that might, but if you pull on that string, it
Yes.
might be leading you somewhere, and
Yes.
it's giving you clues to where the purposes are along the way, right? Is that kind of a way to put that? Like,
Yes. The
because
opportunities. Yes.
there's this guy, there's a YouTuber out there, and I'm just randomly, there's other examples out there, but this one's just coming to my mind right now. But his name is Tank the Tech, and he's a guy that like he just, his YouTube channel is all about like roadies and people that like are on tour constantly with musicians, right? Like they're the guys that they set up the stage, they take the stage down, they make the sound good, they make the lights go. And it's like all behind the scenes. And it's like and I'm speaking for him. I'm just using him as an example. But it's like he started out as a musician. He was the guy on the stage. He was the guy doing this, and then like he just kind of was pulling at us at that string. Now he's not a musician anymore, but he ultimately just kind of ended up being, because he was a good guy. He just loved being around music in general, so then he got asked to be on tours to help be a guitar tech or help run sound or to be a tour manager or something like, just different, all these different things around music. You know what I mean? He didn't become, I don't know what his big dream was, but I'm just like, I assume that just because he was in a band that there was some goal there to be whatever. But it's interesting to me because he seems very happy and very knowledgeable about his topic, and it just kind of flows from him, right? Like, and so, and you see that in so many different ways. Like, if you wanted to be a professional football player, like, well, you know what? Maybe you didn't become Patrick Mahomes, but you know what? You're like a trainer helping NFL stars or helping at a college. You know what
That's
I mean?
it.
Because you're still so I guess I was kind of thinking about that in a way, right? Like I always wanted to be there was always this thing in my mind where I wanted to be like this is bad, but I wanted to be on the radio a long time and I wasn't that familiar with Howard Stern back then, so I just was like, I go, that seems like a good gig, like being Howard Stern. you know. No, all everything about him aside, I'm just saying this
Yes,
is like my
yes.
high school brain, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, in so many ways, like I started going to school for that, but then I went away from it because I had the old my dad's like, well, how are you gonna make money doing that? And I'm like, good question. All right, never mind. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of in a way what kind of happened. And it's funny because like as I got older and as this internet thing came along and as I saw podcasting and all of a sudden I saw this other stuff, I'm like, oh well, geez, I can do all that because you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So not saying I've like hit this. But that's why in a way I'm talking to you right now in a
Yeah.
way like that.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
so I think there's something there with the whole not the destination, but the journey, the whole entire journey. What are you going to be good with doing daily? And even if you're not good with it, you still have to have, you know, back to the diet analogy. Um, you have to make certain things a habit, or you just got to get so they're so locked in and there's so much momentum. Like
Yes.
once you really watch your calories for 20 days, I've been measuring my calories for like a couple of years now. And now I've done it so many times that the, the momentum or the pull to like put my calories in there is so strong that I feel so bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I
Yes.
had to grind through those early days to get into that habit and then to find the things that I liked you know? But again, it
Mhm.
wasn't to lose those first 30 pounds. It was to just maintain this forever,
That's
until you
it.
go. So
Come on, Corey. Yes, all the live long day. Absolutely. I like
all
to
the
say
live long day. There's a
all the live
song
long day.
lyric.
Yeah, it is the song.
What is the song lyric now? Wait, I'm a musician. I should know that. I'm like, why can't I remember I should know this.
It's okay.
But I'll look it up afterwards. But all the live long day. It's bothering me now, but we'll set it aside.
Yes, yes. I like to say that unbecoming is a lifestyle because that's absolutely what it is. And what you're describing is exactly what I was saying earlier, right? You identified very early on a portion of your purpose called to you, and it looked like radio, right? And then fast forward, these different opportunities pop up, and now you find yourself here podcasting, right? It it's the opportunity that opened up for you to express your purpose, right?
Mm,
And that's what it is. However, when we are living inside of other people's dream for us, we deny though like that feeling, we don't give those opportunities any attention, or worse yet, we look at it in secret. And so we have this secret longing, this secret desire that wants to get out because it's been with us and it wants to get out, and yet we're trying to hide it. It is so difficult to pretend like you're somebody else. And yet, when we are living inside of other people's dream for us, that's exactly what's happening every single day.
very
The
interesting.
musician that you Yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead. You finish your thought there. You had something going there.
The musician that you mentioned, right? Again, those extremes, it's all or nothing. And when we have that mentality, he would never have had the opportunity or taken the opportunity to express purpose inside of the opportunities that were presented to him, right? And still in music, it just looks different. Purpose underneath everything, attached to his purpose was music. And had he said, well, if I can't play in a band, then just forget it. It must not be for me. That would have been, oh my, like, no. When, like you said, when we're able to see the opportunities along the way, we stay in a place of fulfillment and satisfaction and joy because we are aware, oh, it's the journey. It's not the ultimate end, it's the journey because there are a lot of side quests, and circling back and mulberry bushes to go around a couple of times and all the things. And it's still all beautiful.
It, it's we're talking about destinations and all that stuff too. It does remind me of my story, and I apologize to anybody that's listening to this that's already read my blogs and heard some of my other podcasts, but it's another illustration, right? Like my 20s was just a blur. It's like I don't know what's going on. I dropped out of school for a while. I drank and played softball and smoked weed and all this whatever, random tons of jobs. I got a whole post about my 19 jobs. but I just remember that when I finally kind of started straightening the ship out a little bit here, it's like I worked really hard to go from to get into an office, right? Like I'm like, I gotta go back and get my drafting school done, like my 2-year degree that took 6 years, right? Like that's my that's my story in the 20s. But when I finally got there, I'm like, I made it, man. I'm in the office because I was working like in a foundry, and just blue collar type stuff, So I felt like, oh, that's it, man. When I get in the office, I'm set for life. And I
Uh-huh.
really was super proud of that for many years, right? I was like, oh my, because I went through a lot to get to that point. But ultimately, it started ringing hollow, even further, right?
Yes.
And that's where I ended up going into my late 30s. And I'm like, wait a second,
Mhm.
you
Yep.
know? So it's really interesting because that's what I was doing. I was looking like, oh, that's my destination is the office. It's like, no, no, that wasn't the destination. But because the destination wears off,
Yes.
it wears off. It like
That's so good. Yes, Corey.
just maybe I need to write a book. No, I don't. I'm just kidding you.
That's exactly what
No.
happens though. The destination, it gets old. The destination wears off. That is a beautiful and so accurate way of putting it. When we think about it as extremes, the destination wears off and you look around on the road, on the trip like, okay, why am I even here? You know, what is the whole point? Like I've been walking this road a long time, but what? Like what? It wears off. It wears off. It does. And then that's when I come in, like, all right, let's do it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I could go on a million different tangents with this, like the rest of the day. But I'm starting to think of people that are listening to this, and I also have in the back of my mind, like I was just listening to a guy talk about like the perfect length for a podcast. Like they looked at like drive time roughly is like 40 to 45 minutes, and we are blowing by that. Um, so not that it means we have to follow that rule. That doesn't mean we have to follow that rule because it is what it is.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I definitely think we could maybe start ramping her down a little bit. Give us one big bow to tie on this puppy. And maybe something that anybody listening to this can kind of take away and like apply like right now. Like, what can I do right after I listen to this podcast? I'm gonna do X.
Okay. So right after listening to this podcast, the X that you need to do is, or where you're invited, is to sit with the feeling of not enough, the feeling of empty, right? And just ask yourself, what am I doing that is making me feel empty? Right? Just if it's one, two, three things, three things max, right? And once you get those three things, think about the opposite, right? What could you do that's opposite? And would that opposite thing help to quiet, not totally eliminate, but at least quiet the emptiness just a little bit? And then once you do that, you need to grab my guide. It'll take you from there.
Perfect. First of all, that was a real. I really like that. I had to write that down. I'm like, whoa, this is a writer downer. Um,
Yes.
so I like that a lot. What am I doing that makes me feel empty? That's a
Mhm.
really good one.
Yeah.
And you just said you got to get my guide. Well, Dr. Truss, where do we get where do, where do we get this guide that you're
Yes.
talking about here?
Yes. So you can get the guide at gift.yourunbecoming.com/podcast.
Okay,
Okay.
and I'm gonna put a link in the bottom of the in the description. We'll put a link in there. Yeah, it'll be somewhere in the description so you can find
Yeah.
it that way. So
Yes. There you
there you
go.
go. Nice little call to action. And is there anything else you want to tell us? I noticed right before I got on that you have a YouTube channel. I know that I've already talked to you on LinkedIn. Is there any other social or anywhere that you want people to go follow you or,
LinkedIn
engage
is
with you?
great. LinkedIn, YouTube, perfect.
O-
Perfect. Yep.
Okay,
And then once you guys get my guide, you'll be in my world. So there's that.
cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. I mean, this is such a good conversation, and I know we had a good conversation. I should have recorded when we had the meet and greet
Yeah.
episode too, because we had all kinds of stuff we got into there too.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's been really fun. And anybody out there that's listening, if you like this type of content and you want to get into this deep thought and maybe sometimes not so deep thoughts, definitely subscribe to my channel wherever it is. Throw us a review, throw us some comments out there. Let us know what you're thinking if you want more, and we'll definitely try it. And again, for me, I'm at redefiningretirement.io, and I am at like too many social networks, and you're probably going to get confused if you just Google my name. It's like it's almost like a name your own adventure. It's like do an Oregon Trail. Like if you look up my name on Google, it's like wait a second, he's a music guy, or wait, he's doing Google ads, wait, he's a podcaster, wait, so yeah. But just look for me on LinkedIn and at Redefining Retirement.io, and you'll figure it out from there. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ebony, for coming on to the podcast. Again, it's super fun. And thanks, everybody out there, for listening and watching, because there are so many things to listen to and so many things to watch that any second that you spend listening to me jabber on about whatever it is like truly, I'm truly grateful for that, because there's just so much out there that you could be doing, and there's so many good people out there. So there you go. I'm going to shut up now. we'll talk. We'll talk to you guys next time. Have a good rest of the day.
Bye. Thank you for